Hello. Loading. Are we on? Going live today. I'm sorry I haven't been with you since the start of the week. I did intend to go live a little more often this week, but it's been crazy busy. I don't know about you, but everyone wants dog training right now. I am swamped, as well as, of course, my business coaching for Dog Matters Pro that I do as well. But everyone wants dog training right now. It's just picking up and up. And I know a lot of dog trainers are also really busy. So that's fantastic. And happy Friday! If you're tuning in live or on the replay, please say hi, let me know. And I have a topic today that's a little bit of a spicy one, and I saw it in one of the professional dog trainer groups this morning where they were discussing a quote apparently by Bob Bailey that said, if the client is not compliant, it is your failure as a trainer. That person is an animal. You are not making it worthwhile for them to play your game. So, what do you think about that quote? Because there was a lot of discussion on the original post that I saw in this trainers group that was split both ways. Hey Haley, happy Friday. Thanks for joining. Oh, by the way, Envy, I got Envy here with me. If she'll come say hi, come on. Envy. Oh, she's gonna go this side. Up. There we go. Say hi. Hey, Smush. Look at the camera. Say hi that way. That way. No. There we go. There. Sort of. Okay. We said hi. Good girl. So we're talking about whether if the client isn't compliant, is it your fault as a trainer or is it on them? And I'll tell you my opinion, obviously, because that's why we're here. And you can let me know in the comments, and if it comes through while I'm live, I'll read it out. And if not, I'll reply to you later in the replay. Yeah, she's a sweetheart. She's a smushy girl. So, we're talking about compliance. So, is it your failure as a trainer? I don't think so. But I also don't think it's always all on the client. And the client is one of the, if not the most important human, at least, in the whole arrangement. They are on the same side of us and they're not the enemy. So, that's an important point, I guess, sort of comes up. A lot of trainers seem to get kind of salty about their clients or about people in general. And there's ways you can run your business to avoid that being such a prominent thing, because it's not a healthy kind of way to look at it. It's not going to get you very far with being successful, or at least successful and happy and with happy clients. So I don't think it's as simple as saying if the client's not compliant, it's on you. It could be either way. So I think we need to make sure we appreciate our clients and we don't judge them, and we remember that we're on the same side as they are. And we certainly need to make sure that we're providing everything that we can to get them the results that they're after. We can't always blame the client, but we can't always blame the trainer either. It's just not that black and white, is it? It's like so many things. There's so many variables that could be contributing here if the client isn't being compliant, and also depending on what you mean by that when you say that, because I've got it in my notes to say later on, but there's a difference between willfully not complying and not understanding and just not getting it, or not being able to apply the advice effectively as the client. So remember too that this is at least 3 parties involved in this arrangement: the client, you, and the dog. And often more people than that, because the client is often going to have a whole household of people involved, and the whole family or household needs to be on board with the training. So we can't control everything that other living beings, dog and human, do or don't do. we have a big responsibility as the trainer, but they also have a responsibility as the client to follow through as well. Remember too, I guess, that clients, and I say this a lot, they're often happier with the results than we are. So we also need to check whether we might be expecting too much. We might expect a lot more from a dog than they would. We might expect that their dog gets to a result that our dogs, or that we would want our dogs to get to. But the client might not care if it's that advanced. They might just want the basics to get them through the issue that they're experiencing when they first contact you. And once they get that, that's enough for them. They don't mind so much about the other pieces that go around it. And if we're providing them with all of these other commands and skills and expectations on the dog to support that goal, but to them, they're seeing the initial result already achieved, then they can lack the motivation to achieve the other parts that we would like them to have in place to support that. Now, what can we do when it comes to our part to make sure that we're getting things across effectively? We want to make sure we're explaining things clearly and in simple terms. And that can be a skill that you can work on and master. But we don't want to use, for example, a lot of scientific dog training jargon and terminology that we might use if we were talking to another trainer in person or online. Talking to other trainers, we're going to understand all of the jargon that comes with dog training. But if we're adding in too much of that to the client, that can add to overwhelm, which can make things harder for them to absorb and learn and take and put into practice. When it comes to the homework itself too, we don't want to overwhelm them, and we want to make sure it's very clear and there's very clear steps. So really break it down. This is what you're working on. This is where to do it. This is how many times to do the repetition, etc. So not just work on this thing, but this is how much I want you to work on it. This is the room or the environment or location I want you to do it. This many times, this many minutes per day, or when you go to feed your dog or when you go through doors, this is how I want you to do it. So making things very clear so that they know exactly what they need to achieve before you come back, and it's all making sense to them. So also reward the client and make training fun. That was one part of the original quote that I guess I did like and agree with, is that it should be fun and motivating for the client. But I just think there's so much more to it than just that. But of course, we want the client themselves to find it rewarding, not just the dog finding it fun and the client being, feeling left behind, not understanding, or feeling judged or berated. And I don't think that happens very often anymore, but I used to meet people, and I guess I occasionally still do, who would expect me to be mean to them and get up them for what they're doing with the dog, because I think there was a bit of this stereotype, maybe from some of the TV dog trainers, I guess it come from, where they come across kind of intimidating and a bit full on, and coming from a real place of judgment of you should not be doing this with your dog. So they might already be feeling that you might be like that, and we don't want to live up to that stereotype. We want to be supportive and help them through it. Sometimes we still have to be firm, yeah, and clear and straight with them, but supportive and caring about getting them to the outcome that they want. How can we reward the client? Even little simple things like telling them they've done a great job, acknowledging the little things, even if it's like, oh, I really like the way that you're holding the leash, or I really loved your timing on that reward. Or I really love the way that your posture is. That's great. Any little thing that you can, compliments, as long as they're honest, but even little things count. Building the client up and giving them feedback on each little part. Show them that you actually enjoy working with them too, not just their dog, and that you care about them and care about the outcome. And hopefully you do enjoy working with them and enjoy the people side. And if you're not enjoying working with people in your job, especially if you're doing one-on-one training, then you need to look at what you need to adjust to change that, because it's a really hands-on, people-based industry most of the time, depending on what sort of services you're offering. But if it's pet dog training, you're going to have to be able to work with people, and you should enjoy your work. So have a look at how you feel about the work with the human end of the leash. Because the last thing that you want is a client that feels like you don't really want to be there. Even if you go to a checkout and someone looks like they don't really want to be there and you're only there for a few minutes, it's not the best feeling. So we don't ever want to make a client feel like that. So while we're making them feel supported, we also want to help them be accountable for their part. They do have a part in this. They do have a responsibility. It's not all on us as the trainer. Make that clear from the beginning too. And I think we talked about this one of the last times we spoke about homework, where we spoke about setting clear expectations, and that the client knows that they actually do have to follow through with rule changes around the house or with practicing things, because they might not know what to expect if they've never worked with a dog trainer before, and they might not even realize that they're expected to do things, and you're not just going to come and wave a magic wand and train the dog and then leave and it's all done. So hold them accountable for their part. When you give them their homework, tell them you will be checking it in the next lesson. And you can even be so firm as to say, if you haven't completed this by our next lesson, we will need to forfeit the lesson, or we will need to just repeat the same thing, and you won't get as good result because we need to keep progress going. And to do that, you need to practice in between the lessons. Make sure too that, especially because they have to practice in between the lessons, that you encourage questions and that you make it clear to them how they can get support from you if they're stuck. So say, in between sessions, after you've given them their homework, say, and as always, you can always reach out to me by text, email, phone call, whatever your preferred method is. If you're stuck, and please do, I really want you to do that, because I don't want you to be stuck until the next session. And of course, you can check in with them once or twice in between sessions and just check how they're going, if they have any questions, and whether they've been practicing and how it's been going. When you're in the actual sessions too, check in with them often that things are clear and make sense. And I know too that I'm mostly talking about a private lesson type scenario, but even if you do board and train, you've got to do a handover lesson at least. So all of this would apply to that. And all of this would also apply to group classes. It's just that that's in a group setting. So this applies to everything, even online training as well. There's a difference too, like I said earlier, between not understanding or not applying something correctly and being willfully non-compliant. So an example of being willfully non-compliant that I have seen, and I think this is probably one of the more common examples that I've seen of this, is if someone refuses to stop free feeding the dog. So the dog's full all the time and your training isn't being as effective, but they've got an emotional attachment to doing this, or they feel bad for the dog if the dog gets the slightest bit hungry, and they're just flat out refusing to make that change. That's an example of willful non-compliance, and that's completely on them. And make it clear that that's going to affect your training, or even fire the client and tell them, if you won't comply with my instructions, it's obviously not going to work, and that's why I'm here in the first place. To avoid that situation from happening so much, you can screen your clients and make sure you're charging appropriately. So I talk in some of my other training, and if you've ever seen my webinar about growing your dog training profits with clients that you love to work with, part of the process is to screen them in the first place through the initial contact, the phone call, anything that you initially do with them, getting them to do some homework before you meet, like filling out a questionnaire, signing a training agreement, and paying upfront. And charging appropriately can make sure that your client feels invested into the training, and that it's not just something cheap that they're giving a go and they're sort of half-assed about it. Is there any other tips that I've missed for how you can make sure that you get more compliant clients? Let me know in the comments if there's anything that I've missed that you found to be effective and work for you. Any ways that you reward your clients and keep them accountable that work for you. Now, if you've done your part and you know you've done your best and the client still isn't complying and you think it's more of that willful non-compliant, don't be too hard on yourself. So success does depend on them doing their part. It's not all on you all of the time. Is it happening with every client? Are you getting a really bad strike rate with people like not following instructions or struggling to complete the training or follow through? If that's happening all the time or the majority of the time, then that might be on you, that you need to look at what you're doing and whether you're covering all those other points, explaining things effectively, using effective methods, and so on. But if it's occasionally, it happens. There's always going to be some people that don't follow through in the way that we would like. We can't want it more than the client. If we are more emotionally or otherwise invested in the outcome of the case than the client is themselves, then that's a lose-lose situation and it's only going to lead to burnout for us. So we don't want that either. At the end of the day, the client needs to want it enough to be committed to the changes that they need to make. Now, if you're in the process of creating programs or improving your programs, I will remind you that we have the new dog training program creation kit, where you can get swipe files and examples of different programs that you can use. You can borrow bits of it or the whole lot if you want, and give you ideas of the kind of things that you can include in your programs to make them irresistible so that people can't wait to sign up. And it also happens to increase compliance in general, because people will be more committed to that whole outcome and more invested if you have your pricing right, which is also included in the kit. We talk about how to set your rates and how to price appropriately. And we have a breakdown in there of how to achieve a 6-figure year for a dog trainer, even if you're working solo and even if you don't have a facility. It's like a whole mini course with videos and written information, and of course the templates and swipe files that you can use. So I'll put the link for that in the comments. It's only $37, by the way, which is a steal for all of that, for what it can achieve for you. I'll pop the link in the comments. I hope you have a great day and a great weekend. And if you're following along in the replay, please do comment and I'll be right there with you. I'll see you in the comments section on the interwebs, and I'll see you next time. Have a great weekend. Catch you later. Bye.